Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. Thank you guys out there for joining us. I know that, as I say every time, you guys have a lot of choices on how you spend your time and energy, so we appreciate you guys spending a little bit of time with us on the show when we post one of these episodes. Today, I am joined by one of the best restaurant operators I know, and I'm not just saying that because he's my friend, but I've got close to 20 years with our guest today that I've got to watch him at a couple of different brands grow his career and continue to operate restaurants. And so I am joined by the one and only Randy Sharpe. Randy, for those that aren't familiar with you, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, maybe even where we met, and we can talk a little bit of fun old school stories from 15 or 20 years ago. I actually just was going through some pictures from Cabo, and your face popped up, so I'll text them to you later. But why don't you let everybody know who you are, and then we can talk about what you get to do day in and day out with XRG.
Sure. Well, I mean, you already made, I don't want to ruin your introduction. But yeah, Randy Sharpe, I'm a restaurant veteran of going on 30 years. And I started out a million years ago, what it feels like a million years ago in the industry. And from there, more of a independence. And then Jeremy and I met, I think it was it's probably been, I joined a little restaurant chain at the time, and have grown to about 50 restaurants in its heyday, Elephant Bar Restaurants. I joined them in 2000, and then grew my career from an assistant manager to when I ended up moving on to pursue a different opportunity. I was an area director in new restaurant openings, and that's where I believe we met. I think we actually met in Cabo, and one of our great company retreats down there. We had many of them. I think we actually met when we were going on a nice long jog.
We did. That was a fun jog in Cabo early in the morning when everybody was hungover.
Early in the morning, and everyone the night before thinks they all commit. And Jeremy and I were the two that actually follow through. We're sitting there at 6 a.m. waiting for everyone else to show up. And I think that's when we started conversing. And since then, I would say I spent about 13 years growing my career at Elephant Bar. And when I moved on to a few different opportunities, and we re-caught up when I was the senior vice president of operations for Romano's Macaroni Grill. And you're working directly with them, and jumped in there and helped move that project forward, where we got North Star integrated and got crunch time and got all kinds of fun. A lot of really good progress made then. And as I joined that and proceeded to want to make that a long-term career, where I wanted to help take that brand and turn it around and bring it back to its relevance, I was tapped on the shoulder where an investment company was buying what was Real Mex restaurants, what we would say would be the good parts of what it was. At one point it was at 200 restaurants, and I think at this point they were buying 52 of them. And they wanted to turn it around, and I had spent 3 years prior to that as VP of Ops for one of the brands at Real Mex. And after sitting down and going through it and really, looking at that opportunity, including the ability to create my own team and form our own little restaurant company and grab something that we know would do well with the right attention and love, and growing it, I jumped on the opportunity. And end of 2018 we took over those 52 restaurants. As of today, we're at 72.
Yep.
So we got 4 years of going on year 5, or 4.5 years later, we've grown by a little over 30%. And 19 was a banner year. 2020 was 2020.
COVID. Yep. Yeah.
We survived. Didn't close a single restaurant. Didn't lay off a single manager or above through that, which is really our calling card on our performance through COVID. And then 2021 was the best year the company's ever had, which allowed us to open 6 new restaurants last year. Organically, we have 3 more in the hopper to open up in Q1. Close to probably Q1 will all be open up. Q1, Q2. And then we just acquired a 6-restaurant chain in beautiful outskirts of Fort Worth, Texas, which now. And
I do.
We're super excited about it. I'll be spending quite a bit of time in the great state of Texas but we're just, we're just excited to where we're at. We're super humble. We know the group that runs this company has all come up the ranks, and we've all learned, what we feel is the right way to do business. We're just taking care of your partners and taking care of your guests. And it's paid off to a point where we're still looking at acquisitions and we're still looking at growth. I was actually on the East Coast until late last night in New York and Washington, D.C., looking at potential sites to continue our growth.
Love it. I love it. So you talked about RealMax, and I know there's been a lot of storied history. The brand that you inherited, and I say you inherited, obviously it was an investment group that owned it, but the brand that you got to take over was not in the best place. I mean, they had been declining sales. They had been declining, you and I have talked offline, not on the podcast,
Sure.
but just about the brands that you guys took over. And the brands, I guess, for those that aren't familiar with RealMax, which is now XRG, give our audience a little bit of the brand names so that they might be a little bit more familiar with the 72 restaurants. And then we can talk about really what you inherited and kind of how you took some of those same core principles that you just talked about of taking care of your guests, taking care of the team members, and taking care of your partners, and how it changed the trajectory of where you guys are at to be able to have the success you've had. But let's talk about the brands. What are the brands that you guys run at this point?
Well, we run 11 now.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
11. We inherited 7. Sorry, you always lose track. There's a couple one-offs. So we inherited 7 brands. El Torito's the big one. It's 32 restaurants strong. Then you got Chevy's Fresh Mex, Acapulco restaurants, just a little small SoCal chain. Las Brisas, everyone's heard of Las Brisas in Laguna Beach. And then you've got the Senegal in New York. You've got Husong and Larry's in Vancouver, Washington, which is a spinoff of El Torito. And then you got El Torito Grill, which is now down to 1 restaurant. We acquired it. We had 2 that we've since converted into one of our other brands that we acquired in 19. So those are the base brands we acquire or we came into fruition for El Torito, and then with the success of 19 brought on the opportunity to acquire Sol Cocina and Solita Tacos and Margaritas.
Yep.
But to your point, getting back to end of 18, 19 is, I think when we came in, we had about 3 weeks to get to know the shape of the business prior to the actual acquisition going through and the investors purchasing. And they're down about 9% in sales, which was pretty big. The funny thing, and this is just crazy, and I think this is just a testament to the team that we had and the excitement of us coming in. Obviously, we had quite a few relationships with people that were at RealMax, and we acquired the brands in October, the end of October of 18. November of 18, we were up in sales.
Yep.
And it was starting to get the systems and standards in place right away, and it started to run. And I think the first month we were close to being down in sales was February of 19. And if you, I don't know if you remember February of 19 in California, it's like now with the rain.
Yeah, exactly. And you guys were super West Coast heavy because so many of the brands were on the West Coast. So yeah,
almost everything's West Coast or was West Coast. We've since expanded, but it was one of those situations we were still up. So we just started that run, and it was really, the core principles was what I mentioned before. It was really, be that operator / that company, that employer that people want to work for. Super important. Do right by your guests, and too often that gets understated where people, that old cliche, customers always right. Well, they may or may not be, but it doesn't matter. They're spending their money. And take care of them. And then the big thing was the condition of the restaurants was not great. We inherited some brands that I think the bones are great, but they just weren't taken care of. So we started a remodel process with El Torito. Goal was to remodel all the restaurants within the first year. We got close until COVID hit, and we had to pause that. And we're pretty much there. There's only a few left that hadn't been remodeled. And that started the brand and just really showed the guests that we love the brands, we love our people, and we love our guests. And then we hit the menus and really spent quite a bit of time looking at what worked and what didn't work and what was great at one point. And one of the things that I saw, early on was the previous regime had really gone more focused on food cost versus food quality. You can have both. So we fixed that. And, and so within the first 3 months, we remodeled 3 restaurants, revamped the entire menu, re-rationalized staffing needs for our restaurants to make sure that it was focused on guests first, and just really focused, I believe, on the right things, and we're rewarded, and the thing took off. So we launched the Chevy's remodel project shortly after. Same result. You saw anywhere from a 15 to 20% lift, sometimes 30 in the restaurants that were renovated, because these restaurants have been around 20, 30 years, and
they hadn't been remodeled in 20 or 30 years in many of them.
Correct. It seems like
yeah.
You had that carpeting 20 years ago is what you think. And, then again, 19 turned into be that banner year where we were able to have get the confidence in our investors to actually start looking at acquisition. So that's when we were able to negotiate a great acquisition in Seoul, Cocina, and Solita Tacos and Margaritas. And there were 6 restaurants, 4 Seoul, 2 Solitas at the time of acquisition. Not the best time in the world to acquire a company. End of November of 2019. Shortly.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of derails or at least pauses your plans of growth, and so acquired them. And then shortly after the pandemic, really, actually took a big bite. And the one thing that was super interesting is El Torito and Acapulco and Chevy's had a pretty robust takeout program. Had to really dig in quick because that was something that was a little bit broken too, and we're working on fixing it. We fixed it quick to where the automation and the ease of guest experience from online ordering and whatnot. But Soul and Sweet didn't have anything. They didn't have any takeout program at all.
So because they were local neighborhood, really high volume. I mean, I know the brands, and they were all in California in the middle of the pandemic. It must have been tough.
Yeah, we didn't want to shut them down. We wanted to keep our employees, keep the managers on, and then have place for the hourly staff to run to when you reopened. So we created that takeout program pretty quick and got creative and continued to look at how to pivot through it. And fast forward, when all said and done, we had 6 Soul and Solitas. We have 12 now.
Yeah.
And we are opening two more Souls. We're opening a Soul in New York on 5th Avenue, and then in Boston in the famous Back Bay area of Boston.
That's awesome.
They're in the next 6 to 8 weeks, depending on when Mr. Construction tells me he's done. But so that's really our story, and it really just is a great group of people to work with, great team. We're still looking to acquire other companies as long as it matches who we are and our DNA, and we're always looking for opportunities to open new ones.
That's great. So I'm going to ask you real quick, Randy, because I was on the inside. I was a consumer of the brands before you guys took them over, and there was a perception of it being a value-based chain. And there was a lot of discounting going on when you guys took over. There was a lot of discounting, and I know at one point my family wouldn't go to El Torito unless I got a discount, because it was one of those brands that you would get a coupon in the mail, kind of like Bed Bath & Beyond. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys fought your way through that so that everybody wasn't waiting for the coupon to drop. That because when you and I grew up and were growing up in the restaurant industry, El Torito was like the place to go hang out. It was the place to go have margaritas after work. And then it turned into kind of this, the energy wasn't there, but not anymore. And I know you guys have turned that around, but talk to me a little bit about how you guys evaluated that value, value proposition to the guests without having to discount heavily to get it.
Yeah. So good point. I remember discount line was fairly high, about 5 or 6%. And one thing that I saw on a regular basis is like 6 FSIs, those freestanding inserts that you would, hit your mailbox, go out. It was they were really hooked on them. And discounts are like drugs. You get hooked and it's hard to get off of them. And you had to give the guests a different reason to come. And you had to do the work. The menu needed work, staffing needed work, the buildings needed work. And that was really our standpoint from day one. Making sure that if guests wanted to order online, it was easy. So we had to give them different reasons. Once everything was able to get in place, El Torito stands, and the other brands start standing on their own. We don't do FSIs anymore. So we're able to effectively eliminate that and move from a marketing. Marketing has a bunch of different facets. that the mark, couponing and discounting is one form. It's really transactional marketing.
Uh-huh.
But we really were able to transition to experiential marketing, where it's really more image based. We want to show off our beautiful buildings now. We want to show off our beautiful food. Want to really just show the lifestyle pictures of what's going on in the restaurants when you're there. So it really went from transactional, we'll give you a discount, please come in, and we'll give you, the markdown on the restaurants, and then to now where it's pretty much full retail. There's a loyalty program that's great and that rewards long-term guests, but that's super small piece compared to before. It would be hard pressed to find a guest that wasn't coming in without a coupon in hand. And that's just not part of our business anymore. But it was
and again, that was what, you guys turned that around, which ultimately turns around gross margin, and it turns around, your profitability, which gives you the cash flow to grow, which I think is a bold move, because a lot of restaurants, and I've been around for a long time watching, they discount themselves to death, and then nobody shows up, and then your clientele start to not come in anymore when you stop offering the discounts.
Yeah, the other thing that they do is and I've been part of some brands in the past where they wanted to get away from discounts, which was a great plan if you have a right strategy.
Yeah.
And I've seen it too often where I say, hey, we're going to eliminate this, but no strategy.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't give your guests a different reason to come and you try to peel that off, you better have a lot of money in the bank.
Yeah, you better have a big backstop, because you're going to be hurting.
It's a long curve to get to where you need to be and be successful. So, we weren't going to do it until we were ready, and we eased off of it. And now it's one of those things where, value is always an equation, right? What you pay is part of that. Your experience is part of that. What you walk out feeling is part of that. And I think that guests still feel they're getting a great value at El Torito without having to have a coupon in their hand anymore.
Yeah, I love that. You threw out the concept of an experience, and for anybody that's been to Laguna Beach and been to Las Brisas, it's an experience, regardless of when you've been, whether it was this leadership or different leadership. Las Brisas has always been that way. Mm-hmm. I got the privilege to go to Seoul, and I had been to prior to your guys' leadership, but I watch both on social media, and I watch even for myself when I consume your brands. It's a place to go, and it's a place to see, and it's a place to be seen. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys think about that guest experience and creating a place that people want to talk about being at, because I think that's part of the aura of getting in to these places. Is when you go to Seoul and Newport Beach or whatever, like, it's the place that people want to be seen, and they want to go hang out, and they want to go enjoy, because it is part of the lifestyle. It's part of taking a selfie, on Instagram and posting it. How do you guys consider that? Because that, again, is a very different methodology than what you inherited 5 years ago.
What we inherited 5 years ago was feeding people.
Yep. It was just about food. Sustenance.
There's no difference between that and going to Chipotle or fast casual. Not to knock those places, they're great, but they serve a purpose. They're not experiential. And El Torito was built on experience. It was built on, like you mentioned, you and I growing up, we went there for birthdays, holidays, brunch. You name it, we went there for a specific reason. It turned into, hey, $9.99 taco deal, which doesn't hold on. Sorry, Jeremy, 1 second.
You're good.
Can you plug that in for me? Somewhere. There's an extension cord right there. Sorry, I got technical help so we don't die here. So anyways,
you're fine.
It turned in from that to it wasn't the same, and we it wasn't going to survive on that. And everything we focus on right now is how people feel when they leave the restaurant. It's not about just food. It's about food. It's about experience. It's about treating your guests like family. It's about, I went to Seoul and Newport Beach. Amazing service, great food, great beverage. The ambiance was amazing. It just made it a special experience for my anniversary or whatever.
For a birthday, for an anniversary, for just a business dinner, whatever.
And you become the destination for that. And I think that's what people want. And I can tell you right now, there's takeout that's still part of our business. It's about 10% of our business. It obviously grew to 100% during the pandemic and was at 20 for a while. It's about 10%, which is about 5% higher than it was before. So you have that piece of the business you need and love. Just got to make sure your food quality is high. But you have the other piece that is the memories. And that's what people, especially, coming out of the pandemic, were looking for. They were looking for an experience and a reason to go out. And it was our responsibility to take care of them. And, throughout this entire 5 years, one thing we never take for granted is guests have a lot of choices out there. Money is not unlimited to anyone. And if you're going to get them to come in, you better appreciate every visit and better make special. And our team understands that. Our team understands that, and that's our focus. And we always can get better and learn. And one of the things we try to do is stay humble and understand that, hey, it's never going to be perfect, very few times, but we want to make it great. And we really focus on the great side of that versus perfect. Perfect's something you'll never hit. You can be great, meaning they can have a great experience whether this little thing happened or that little thing happened. I didn't get the exact seat they wanted. I didn't get their food could have been a little hotter. But us being on top of it and taking care of their experience, they come back. So, super important.
And again, we talk about that a lot on the show. Is just creating a good guest experience through technology, through people, through process, through systems is exactly why restaurants exist. Because if not, then they can get the same calories from McDonald's or Burger King or Subway, but they're paying 2 or 3x for Soul in Newport Beach because they're getting a better experience.
That's a good point on the technology side, because that's one of the things that would definitely, you think about these brands, and some of them have been 68 years old, and I think some of them were created in the 80s, like Chevys, and our technology was sub 80s when we took over. And we said you never want technology to interfere with the guest experience. You want it to enhance the guest experience. And these are experiential restaurants. They are places people go for special occasions. But if we don't have technology, you're going to fall behind. You're going to lose it. You can't physically muscle through. Las Brisas will do north of $400,000 a week in the summertime. You cannot muscle through something like that unless you have technology as your friend. And one of the things we did at Las Brisas coming out of the pandemic, we were able to grow now permanent an extra 80 seats that and transform part of our parking lot into this beautiful, we call the Rose Garden out there. But then you think, well, how's all that food going to come out of the kitchen? Well, we launched KDS and launched Bar KDS and launched technology, and really looked at the back end of this. How does the back end of this that the guest doesn't see going to actually help us grow? And that's one of the things that we're always looking at. We're always excited about trying, with a very sensitive lens, that we want to make sure that the guest doesn't feel like they're being served ever by a robot, but you're leveraging technology to be able to set them. And we weren't doing those sales before KDS, and we couldn't do them without it right now.
Yeah. No, and the one thing that I've always appreciated about you, Randy, is just the fact that you embrace technology to solve business problems. You're an executive that truly understands the value of technology. A lot of other CEOs that I've worked with in the past, they just, I don't know, it's somebody else's problem. Just go figure out how to make it better. I just want to be able to do whatever it is I want to do as a business. But you've always been really good about embracing and understanding that technology is an enabler to do $400,000 a week in sales at Las Brisas on a summertime week in Laguna Beach, which again is a hard thing to do without having systems in place to do that.
I appreciate that, but spending that time with you in Cabo, even though it was really for drinks and exercise, and some of the same folks that we've grown up with that are on the technology side, we're really obsessed with operations. But if you just spend time, and I learned early on that it's such a hand-in-hand relationship, and if you have the right IT folks that work with you that are really focused on making sure it's an experience for your guests, they're going to teach you why everything is so important, and then you learn it. And in my mind right now, today's operator, if they don't use and leverage and are always looking for the best technology to improve their guest experience, they're going to fall behind. So.
And you're not going to be able to deliver on the brand promise that you talked about.
There's no chance anymore to do that. There's just too many variables out there that if you don't have the right technology in your business, you're gonna struggle at some point.
And your competitors are doing it, so you got to figure it out. So so you talked about acquiring Soul and Salida in 19, right before the pandemic. You guys just recently acquired, I happen to ironically not because I chose it, but because a customer chose it to go to the brand that you guys acquired here in Fort Worth. Talk to me a little bit about what the brand acquisition strategy is. I know you guys are all Mexican at this point. Is that kind of where you guys are staying? Are you guys looking for small local brands? Are you guys looking for large brands? Are you guys looking for medium-sized brands? Talk to me a little bit about what that strategy looks like and how you guys are trying to continue to grow, not just organically, because you guys are growing organically. The brands that you guys have, you guys are opening up new stores every day, every week, every month, but you also are looking to have strategic acquisitions where it makes sense. Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like and what should those listeners be out there looking for and thinking about when they talk about XRG.
Well, fun fact on that. So we actually, part of this acquisition that you just mentioned in Texas that just literally, I think the ink's not even dry yet. It was a couple weeks ago. There's 6 restaurants in the whole. 4 of them are Tex-Mex, which fits what we've done, what we knew well. There's actually 2 of them that are called the Rim, and they're not Tex-Mex. They're our first endeavor into, craft cocktails, craft food that, quote unquote gastropub. Feel, live entertainment. So they're smaller footprints, but they're really a bar forward concept. So that would kind of lend into what our strategy is. Our strategy is we want something that matches quality of operation and quality of culture. And we wouldn't buy anything that would jeopardize what we currently have, meaning there's there's plenty of brands out there, and quite a few of them can be up for acquisition. But if they're struggling to a point where it might put a strain on our current company, we probably would steer away from it. If we felt the quality was there and we felt the opportunity for growth was there and we thought the people really represented who we are, it's hard to buy a company that doesn't have the right people in it, or at least the bones of the right people. Then we would look at it. And size, that was a 6 restaurant chain. We would look bigger if it lent itself, and we would look outside Mexican if it lent itself, but it really has to have some of those key attributes. I think my CFO is counting there. I think we looked at 40 companies in the last year and a half.
Wow.
And we had one, acquired one in 19, and we just acquired our second. So it's a pretty stringent lens that we go through to make sure it's right for our company. We're pretty obsessed in a good way with our company's success and continued success, and so we want to make sure we make the right decisions.
I love it. I'm going to ask you to forecast. You and I have been doing this for a long time. Where's the restaurant industry heading? We've seen a lot of change since the pandemic, since you really took over this brand. We've had so much pivot. Where's the restaurant industry heading? Is it heading to a place where we're hiring people for hospitality and technology's doing its technology thing? Oh, what happened there?
Hold on.
Yeah, you're good.
The music's fail. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
So, where's the industry heading?
Yeah, where's the industry heading? Well, what do you think? What do you think the industry's? What are our kids? I mean, your kids and my kids are in the same age demographic. What are they going to experience when they either get into the workforce and they're managing restaurants and running restaurants? What is going to be different from what we grew up with or what we're dealing with now? Is it just the advent of technology and allowing us to figure out where guests are at and help deliver on the brand promise? Is it robots in the kitchen helping us cook food and measure things? Is it KDS that's delivering? I see a utopian world where I see Randy walking in from the parking lot and I know who he is. I know that he loves margaritas with, salt on the rim and on the rocks margaritas with salt. And he likes, high level tequila. So I'm going to make sure that that's ready for him when he walks in on a Tuesday night. Is that what you see, that technology is going to enable us to do what you and I were trained to do, but can only do at a small micro scale? Talk to me a little bit about where you think things are going.
So I think you're going to get a little bit of both. I think from a fast casual / quick casual / that world, you're going to continue to see a lot more automation, just with the labor headwinds and everything you have going on. There's a tremendous opportunity for when people are going to get a meal for it to become a little more seamless. And from an experiential, I think you nailed it, to where Jeremy Julian makes a reservation And the restaurant will know your favorite drink, your favorite appetizer. Restaurant meaning the servers, because it's gonna, you're gonna have your profile there, and we're already working on that, quite a bit, and we're getting close. But then you look at our kids and say, by the time they're in our seats, that's probably what they expect.
Yeah.
So you got to be ready for that, and you got to think about it. It's like, who's going to survive? Well, the ones that are not embracing, looking at those little attributes to make it a little bit more special experience, where are they going to be? I don't know. I think the ones that are going to succeed in this business, it's hard to say that, the wheel's been created in the restaurant business a long time ago, and it's hard to recreate it. But how can you make it better? How can you make it smoother? How can you make it more effortless? And I think everyone wants an effortless experience where it's just easy. And we all lived it. We lived the pandemic, but then we lived the 21 where you walk up to a restaurant. Staffing was such an issue that it was almost anxiety when you talk to your significant other about going out for dinner. It's like, I don't want to be a 2-hour wait. Let's go to one of my restaurants, honey, because I know we'll get right in. So we lived that. But think about that, like fast forward and continue on. What did you learn from that? If people don't want to have to work, and they don't want to have to consider it work when they go out, how do you make it easier? How do you make it easier to make a reservation? How do you make it easier to have the things that you love? How do you make it easier for them to get in and out from the payment processing? How do from your favorite server? Like, all those things are components that we're always looking at, and there's a ton of manual intervention. Okay?
Yeah.
The smaller the restaurant,
so.
the easier the manual intervention is. Okay. The bigger these restaurants are, and we've got some pretty large ones, the harder it is for that individual manual intervention. So that's leveraging all those tools that we talked about, and there's plenty of them out there. There's great ones that will really help you understand that when I make a reservation, they should know when I've been there right now. They should know when I've been there in the last time. They should know some of my favorite profiles, and they should know me by name. And I think if you focus on those things, it's still personal. It's personalizing that experience, and it's making it that much better. And if you become great at that, you're going to have a leg on the competition. So.
Yeah, well, and part of why during 21 you went out to your restaurants is you knew you were going to get what you needed, and unfortunately, more and more that doesn't exist, that cheers factor. So, how do people get in touch with that? Oh, sorry, go for it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and we had some real specific pillars in 20 moving out of the pandemic into now, and still following them. And part of that is think about if a guest. And this is operations, this is leadership, and this is also technology. If I go to a restaurant with my 2 kids and it's a 45-minute wait, the chance of me sticking around is slim. If it's a 20-minute wait, I'm gonna be there all the time. So it's really leveraging those things to make the experience easier for our guests. So.
Yeah, no, and I can see computers enabling that. I mean, I was talking to somebody last week at Mertech, and just the idea that I can even call into the host stand and figure out what my real time is going to be. That when I go to third-party delivery or I order, I'm going to get the Domino's pizza experience, even if I'm sitting in the dining room. I can see when the order got put into the kitchen. I can see when it hit the fire line. I can see when it's coming out. So I can control my experience so that I know with my 4 kids what the guest experience is going to look like, because I know how awful it is when I have that bad experience. I was at a brand that we do business with just this week, and I had an hour and 45-minute dinner, and it shouldn't have been an hour and 45-minute dinner. It should have been an hour dinner for our party of 7, but it was bad. And it's now got my wife going, do we want to go back there? And it was a regular spot for us, but because of that guest experience, it turns into this desire to consider maybe I should go somewhere else.
Yeah, it turns into that question. You never want that, right? You want to be consistent, but you want to be reliable, and that's the name of the game. So how do you continue to get better at that? So. Yep,
absolutely. Well, how do people learn more about you? How do people learn more about XRG? Experience the brands. Figure out what cities they're in, and how can they engage with you, your team, and experience the restaurants that I've gotten the privilege to grow up going into, and still get a chance to go to every time I'm in a town with them.
Go to our website. It has it all there. It even has our new brands on there already. Our crack IT team with obviously your guys' help, Jeremy. We already have all our new restaurants on the website. Go there What you're going to learn about is you're going to learn about some of the great history that maybe you don't know, like El Torito, 69 years strong. I mean,
that's awesome.
Think about that. How many other restaurant brands have been around that long? They are the founder of Mexican food restaurant in Southern California, and founder of many firsts, from Taco Tuesday to your first Frosty Margarita, the first tableside guacamole. I could keep going on. You'll learn that there, but you'll learn where we are too. You have the map, and you can show exactly where we're out through the United States. Obviously, California is our base, always will be. But we are growing in other markets, and we're growing strong in other markets, and we're becoming well known in several different markets. But if you go there, you can learn a couple of things. You learn about our leadership team, who we are. You learn about our restaurants, the history of our restaurants, and where we're at.
I love it. I love it. Well, Randy, I know it's been a long time coming getting you on the show, so I appreciate you spending a little bit of time. To our listeners, guys, I know that you guys have got choices, so thank you guys for listening. Randy, thanks for being on the show, and make it a great day.
No, thank you so much, Jeremy. It's always great to spend some time with you, and looking forward to doing it again soon.